Today, we are looking at 3 different modifications for the new Nintendo 3DS that will work to modernize the console for 2024 and beyond. With the eShop and online play being officially discontinued by Nintendo for the 3DS, it's hard to find a reason to just not modify your 3DS system now, especially with all the additional benefits that it'll bring your handheld, whether it's online play, game backups, ROM hacks, translations, homebrew. I mean, the list really goes on and on and on. And while the software side certainly gets the majority of the spotlight, there are still some awesome hard mods you can do to your system that'll have it more in line with some of your more modern devices. To start, I have a new 3DS XL that is going to get a complete shell swap pretty soon. It's seen better days, and this was a secondhand system that I've used in other videos, but with how these handhelds are starting to become harder and harder to find, I figured it was about time I did a complete refurbishment to it. Before that, however, it might be fun trying a few mods that would require cutting and altering the case since I won't be needing it soon anyway. Think of this as a way to try out these mods in a 1.0 setup so I can decide if I'll want to add it to the final build later on. We'll start, though, with the most popular mod, and that is replacing the ancient proprietary charge port that Nintendo shipped this thing with. This was introduced with the DSi, and Nintendo used this port for years before finally making the change to USB-C with the Switch. Having to rely on this specific charger, it's not great in a pinch, especially with USB-C being so plentiful now. My plan was to add a new port alongside the current Nintendo port, and to do this, I would need a USB breakaway board from Amazon. These things are everywhere, and while this one appears to be overkill with data lines, it should get the job done with ground and V-Bus being easy to solder. I checked out the casing and decided to try to carve out the spot where you would tie off a lanyard to, and for the most part, it did seem to fit the USB-C port well. Only issue I ran into was clearance with the antenna being right behind it, so I decided to just start carving further and further away from it here to see if I'd be able to fit the port maybe alongside the shoulder buttons. Look, it looks ugly here, okay? But it does seem that it could fit in this space and would probably still retain the lanyard hook. I think for the final design, I should just measure up and drill out 2 holes and connect them with the cutting Dremel to make the hole for the port. Inside the system, we need to wire up the USB-C port so I can charge the battery. This part is pretty easy, but yes, you will need to solder a few wires. Fortunately, this is beginner level soldering with the points clear and fairly large, so tacking these down shouldn't be much of a problem. We'll leave the V-Bus and ground points from the breakaway board to the legs of the charge port here. Both ground and power are easy to get to here, and with the wires all soldered down, I did a quick test, and it shows that power is getting to the battery, and it's charging. The nice thing about the position of the board is it's mostly held in with pressure from the battery compartment, but some hot glue will help to fill in any gaps and would also help to keep it from moving around when plugging cable in. Overall, USB-C seems pretty easy to install, and if you're better at cutting cases than I am, it should end up looking pretty good. Okay, so our 3DS now has USB Type-C for charging, which is significantly more convenient. Obviously, many devices now use USB-C for charging. Technically, you have charge cables for your Switch that will now work with your 3DS. But let's say you didn't want to have to always plug in your system. What if you could wirelessly charge your 3DS? Installing a wireless charger is actually easier than you'd think. Most of the difficulty is finding where to put the receiver and the power management board since we do have limited space inside the 3DS. There are a bunch of options on Amazon for the receiver, and I've even seen some people rip apart wireless chargers designed for phone cases in a pinch. All we need to do here is connect the ground and power as we did with the USB-C port. I fed the wire from the back with the receiving pad near the headphone jack. There's enough room where the plastic's closed for the wire to get through to the other side. That's where we'll put the power management board. Having the receiving pad on the opposite side will hopefully give the system a better connection to the wireless charger with one less layer of plastic to sit behind. Otherwise, I taped down the board inside the 3DS and ran the power and ground from the same place we had that USB-C setup. Everything was secured here fine with Kapton tape, and then a quick check shows the wireless pad is able to send power with the bottom shell on. I haven't tested how long it takes to fully charge the system through a wireless pad, but my plan here is to just use this option when I'm done playing anyway, since I have a bunch of these wireless pads from Amazon sitting around in different rooms. It's nice to be able to just set it down on a desk or shelf and have it start charging right away. I did have a few things I wanted to point out here. One, you do have to have that wireless pad targeted almost exactly. I mean, there's some margin of error, but for example, if you set it down off to one side just a bit, it won't make connection and won't start charging. So you do at least have to be mindful as to exactly where you set it down and just make sure when you look at the pad, it turns green and the charge light comes on that 3DS. I guess the only other thing I'd want to test down the road is any heat issues, but I will say after using the 3DS with this wireless charging setup for a few days and leaving it on a charge pad for hours on end, I haven't noticed anything too alarming other than the usual heat you would feel from the 3DS being used or charged normally. And I know we've mostly just done mods right now for just charging the system, whether it's wirelessly or through USB-C, so why don't we move over to a mod that would more or less affect how you're playing these games or how you're controlling the game with that little nub C-stick. So this was an idea I saw over on GBA Temp forums where a person pointed out that the ThinkPad X1 nub fits perfectly in place of the stock 3DS nub. I've seen many people also use the PSP analog stick, but this one seems to fit in actually better than that, and in fact I think would just have a better overall grip and feel to it. So the main issue we're trying to solve here is the lack of grip and even comfort with that stock C-stick. It's easy to change out too with a few screws holding the stick in place. You pop the old one off and you reinstall it without the stick and then flip the 3DS open. Since there's overhang with the ThinkPad replacement, you can only fit it on from the top side, but it lines up perfectly with the square peg and has a really nice fit, almost being flush with the top of the system. A quick check and everything works fine, and the feel is significantly better. The rubberized top and texture makes it way easier to keep your thumb in place when moving left to right. There's a bit more give to the top as well when you press it down, so it feels like there's more of an input here than when using the regular stick. I guess a drawback might be the look. It definitely stands out more than the stock gray stick, although some people might look at the more vibrant red and say it fits in with Nintendo's color scheme, so some might actually like it. I think this, along with the wireless charging, are the two mods I would recommend looking into, since neither require you to cut up your casing and have legitimate benefits for the functionality of the 3DS. USB-C, it's a great project to modernize the system, but it's clear I need to do a bit more testing and research to find the perfect spot for that port. But let me know what you guys think about these modifications down below. I think I'm going to use all three of these modifications for my final build on this new 3DS XL after the casing comes in. I'll just try to make it a bit more clean around where that USB-C port is, and I'll probably post some pictures up online after it's been completed, whether it's on the community board, on YouTube, or maybe over on X when I get a chance. But thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.